Good morning, Anchorage, Alaska, the lower 48, and the rest of the world. This is Bruce Lindquist with his podcast, Wonderful Counselor. So while you guys are waiting for the terrifying conclusion of Hide and Seek, with the last episode coming out shortly, called Heaven or Hell, I thought I would treat you to a Gothic horror story. Now, like many of the podcasts that I've been doing, this is not for the faint of heart. So definitely not kids should listen to this. Parents, I would listen to it before you let your teenagers hear it. And if you have a trauma history, I definitely would not recommend you listen to this because it has violent themes and images, very suspenseful, tension filled. It's really creepy, and adult themes. So you've been warned. I'm also going to give you two endings. The first ending is actually sweet. It ends in a kind of a happy ever after way. The second ending is more of the Gothic horror style, and let's just say that's not a happy ending. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the story. Harry is a 25-year-old, sandy haired, good looking guy that women are attracted to like a magnet. However, usually the wrong kind. He's traveled all over the country, but he has yet to find a virgin like him who prizes purity, modesty, and friendship. Harry has managed to stay away from alcohol or drugs or even cigarettes. He has no desire to put anything in his body, for as it says in Scripture, he is a temple of God. He's been in Arizona for a few months when he drove to a small little town called Sand River. It was named because of all the flash flooding that happens in the ruts of the desert. It could be the driest place on earth, but also the wettest. Terry picked up a job as a mechanic. He was good with his hands. He could make a living fixing anything. His abilities were in high demand, so it really fit with his vagabond lifestyle. Early one morning, Terry was hungry. He decided to check out a local diner for some breakfast. He walked in wearing his faded jeans, work shirt, and tennis shoes, which were his standard attire. A waitress came up to him to take his order. They made eye contact. Her eyes were brown and radiant, sending a warm, tingling feeling throughout his body. He all of a sudden felt shy and looked down at his menu. He dared not look into those eyes again, but he did, and she smiled. He did not believe in love at first sight, but there she was. Not glamorous, but beautiful. Her clothing or jewelry didn't adorn her body, she did. When she spoke, her voice was gentle and welcoming. He had to admit, he was quite smitten. The young 21-year-old woman in front of him was named Sally. She was about 5'7", tossed about brunette hair tied in the back to keep it out of her eyes. She came from a hard-working religious family that taught her to treasure the same values that Terry did. Terry started being a regular at the diner for every meal just to see Sally. When she had her breaks, they would initially make small talk, but that led to more personal conversations. He loved her personality. She made him laugh, her little quirks. She didn't seem aware of those, and he thought they were just cute. They laughed so easily together. Sally didn't think it was possible, but she was following head over heels for this guy. Terry was trying to figure out how to ask her out, and finally did for lunch. They had old-fashioned milkshakes through straws, and they sipped them together with hamburger and fries. Terry worked up the courage to ask if he could meet her family, and Sally was happy to introduce them. Terry's dad, Bill, was one of those fathers who believed, if you mess with my daughter, I have a shotgun, I own property, and I know where the bodies are buried. Sally shared, Terry's a mechanic, Dad. I'll tell you what, if you can fix my generator, I'll let you date my daughter, said her dad. Terry looked at the old man's generator, took off the case. It looked like it was in good repair, but it wouldn't start, So he looked at the circuit board and wiring. He said he'd be back and went to the local parts store to replace the circuit board and did some rewiring. He turned on the generator and it purred like a kitten. Sally's dad now was pretty impressed. He kissed his daughter and said, "Don't have her home too late." Sally shared that no one ever asked Dad for his blessing to date her, and she was not just attracted to him physically, but now drawn to his character. When Terry returned for their date, a few nights later, he opened the door of his truck for her, which was now clean from all the work tools, and Sally got in. At the door of the restaurant, he got out ahead of her a bit and then opened it up for her. While escorted to their table, he pulled out the chair and scooted her in towards it. She thought to herself, he was the perfect gentleman, and she felt so honored. Dinner was good. They were not focusing on the food as much as they were lost in each other's eyes. Harry gave Sally a purity ring. Her heart lit up. He is not one of those one and done guys that her dad would have shot. He's the real thing. He also gave her one white rose, which he explained symbolized he chose her out of all the flowers in the world. Now, Sally and Terry realized that night their friendship had become more intimate as they shared and made a commitment to honor each other by being faithful to their new relationship. The purity ring thrilled Sally's parents. Now Terry was a regular for dinner, and when Sally was not working. Sally said, "I have a surprise for you tomorrow. I'm going to take you out to the desert and show you the places that I love." Terry was so looking forward to the adventure. He'd be alone with Sally. And he thought, just that thought, when he woke up the next morning, caused him to take a cold shower. Harry was about to leave to meet Sally, and he got a call from a customer in need of services. Terry went out to the old man's house, troubleshot the problem, and said he would get the part for him today, but he'd be unable to install it until tomorrow. Since it wasn't an emergency, the man was just happy to know it would be fixed. Harry drove out to the parts store a few miles out of town. On his way, he noticed an older woman dressed in black, and she was walking out into the desert. If she would have been his age, he wouldn't have thought about picking her up, because he didn't put himself in situations with even a hint of impropriety. He called out to the woman, who seemed to be in a world of her own, and he asked the question, "Can I help you?" The woman ignored him and kept walking. He drove a little past her out of the truck. "Are you okay?" he asked. Since he was now standing in her way, she looked up at him. Her voice was childlike. She shared her sister as a nurse and took too long at the hospital, so she's walking home to be with her friends. She then walked around him and headed down the road. As far as Terry could see, there was only endless barren sea of desert. "Hey," he said, "how about I drive you home? That way you can get to your friends sooner." The woman paused, looked down at her feet, and then straight ahead. She then turned and got in the truck, accepting his offer without speaking. "How far do you live out there?" Terry asked, but the woman didn't say anything. Terry kept driving, and about an hour later said, "Okay, I don't think anyone lives out here. I'm turning around." The woman then pointed to what looked barely like a road. So he turned and found he was driving on an old, dried riverbank, and that led to a dirt road. Harry was losing his bearings, and at first he thought he was seeing a mirage, but there in the distance was a series of houses, all joined together like one level triplex. The building was dark in contrast to the desert sand. It had seen better days, now weathered from rain and sandstorms. The roof was sagging a bit. The porch had a few missing boards, others rotted out. It looked like something you would see in a ghost town. He then felt this chill go through his body, like an unseen hand barely touched his skin. He couldn't shake the feeling, as if he was being watched. The woman got out of the truck and thanked him and attempted to walk towards the house, but she fell. Harry got out of the truck and helped her up off the sand. The closer he got to the house, the more that creepiness feeling went away. He noticed 3 doors for each of the houses. The older woman was heading to the one on the left. Harry felt the wood of the structure. It was sturdier than it looked. When the woman walked in her house, she closed the door and disappeared out of sight. Terry was about to drive away, and his truck died. He got out, opened the hood. He tried everything he knew. There was no explanation why his truck would not start. He tried to call, but there was no internet service. Well, maybe the woman has a landline, he thought, and he knocked on her door. She eventually opened it. He explained his situation, and she invited him in. The first thing he noticed was the odor. It was beyond musty and damp, like one would experience going to an old bookstore or video store. It was the smell of decay and death, and it smothered his senses like someone put a rag taken off a dead body and pressed it on his face. He could barely breathe. The door then shut behind him. It made a sound like a coffin closing. He felt that skin-crawling feeling again, like a decaying hand reaching out from under the floor, moving up his pant leg. Harry jumped back and shook his leg. Nothing was there. Only the dust that now hung in the air, caught up in the faint gloomy light, like ashes escaping from a furnace in a crematorium. The woman said in her childlike voice, "Do you not love the cotton candy smell in my room?" She showed him her marble sink, how the water was like a magical fountain that made crystal clear. Harry did not see anything magical about porcelain sink that was rusting. The woman continued, "I just love my Persian rugs and the pattern and how it makes my feet feel so soft. It's like walking on air." Harry looked down. They were walking on a dirt-colored carpet that was quite worn. The woman said, "Look at my prized possession. It is a bed made for a queen. Look at the fabric and the colors. It was made for a fairy tale princess like me." Harry looked at the old sheets, the pillow, a thread-barren blanket lying on a metal frame. She then looked up. "My chandelier lights, my beautiful royal room." Harry gazed up at a single light bulb that hung there almost in midair. It barely lit the room, and as he walked, his shadow and hers seemed to dance along the walls, but other shadows joined them as well. Harry thought, "I've had enough. This woman is delusional." And he was glad that he brought her home. She would have died in the desert. He thought, "I need to tell someone about the conditions she's living in." Harry asked her again if she had a phone, and the woman said, "My friends might." And she pointed to 2 animals on her bed. She called them cats, but they were actually dead rats that had been stuffed. They both were staring at him like he was a piece of cheese. "My other friends would like to meet you later," said the woman. Harry said, "I'm good. Enjoy your home and your friends," and he went to open the door. But it didn't open. "Why will the door not open?" asked Harry. "Oh, I have to let you out," said the older woman. "I was hoping we could play, but we'll play later," and she opened the door. Harry felt like he had just walked out of a grave. He was so grateful to see the sun, his lungs filled with fresh air. He went out to his truck to start it, and it started again. He reflected on the past events. She sure is a wackadoodle, he thought. He took a breath, started to back up, and he hit a woman that was standing behind the truck. The woman was dressed for the weather. It was hard to make out her appearance. At first glance, she looked just like the old woman he'd just left in her little house. The woman pointed to a second door. Harry helped her into her house. He was bracing himself to enter another tomb, but instead he carried her into a normal house that was well furnished. He placed her on her couch. She asked for a glass of water, which Terry got for her from the kitchen. It looked like it was from a magazine. Copper was everywhere, appliances, new stainless steel, the lighting warm and inviting, and the dining table made from a beautiful mahogany wood. There was artwork on the walls that looked like masterpieces, and the floor, unlike the house he was in before, did have Persian rugs. The woman appeared in the kitchen and sipped her water gingerly. "Are you okay?" he asked. She said, "Oh, you didn't hurt me. I've been through far worse in my life. Just a little bruise here," as she lifted her pant leg to show Terry. She said, "If you want to make it up to me, just join me for dinner." Terry agreed. She explained that she was a nurse at a local hospital and her sister's guardian. Her sister could live with her, but sees this house as unlivable and prefers the house she's in, so she stays there with her friends. "Do you have a phone?" asked Terry. "I'm sorry," said the woman, "but it's not working. We also don't have a cell tower out here. There is no internet. You're in the middle of nowhere." The woman was still wearing her coat with a hood. She made dinner, and it was the best meal he'd ever eaten. "You're an amazing cook," he said. She thanked him for bringing her sister home, as she tends to wander a lot. Harry was about to leave when the woman removed her coat and with hood. There standing before him was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Her eyes were deep, dark brown, hypnotic. Her hair was brunette, with the same color as Sally's, only far more vibrant, and it framed her face like the most beautiful portrait ever painted. The rest of her body was beyond anything he could imagine, and he could almost see through her clothes. Terry became quite uncomfortable because his body was reacting to hers in a way it hadn't with Sally. He didn't just need a cold shower, he needed to dump his entire body in a glacier lake. He felt so hot. She smiled at how shy he was. Her voice was suggestively sultry, with just enough Americana to present as an all-American girl. Harry knew he needed to get out of there, and while his body looked at the woman, his heart remembered Sally, and he said, "I really need to leave," and headed out the door. The woman said in a welcoming and kind voice, "Do not go just yet. Let me get you some food for the road." It was a long trip home, as that's the least that I can do for you, being so nice to my sister. Harry did not trust himself with her and said, "Okay, but I'm standing over here next to the door." The woman said, "I don't bite hard," and slowly licked her lips, and then handed him a wonderful smelling meal. Terry thanked her, almost afraid to let his hand even touch hers. He felt like a Greek sailor being lured to the rocks by the sirens. The woman then said in a soft whisper, "I get lonely here, with just my sisters for company. Please stay the night with me. You can get a fresh start in the morning." She smiled. "Don't make me beg unless you want me to." Terry said no. He was flattered but need to get back. He turned the door handle. It would not open. "Are you sure?" said the woman. "I'll make it a night to remember." "I need to leave," said Terry, and she brushed past him, sending passion waves through his body, and opened the door. Terry walked out to his truck and just stared. The windows were all broken. The interior was ripped to shreds, the tires slashed, as flat as the desert. The hood was up, and sand was pouring out of his radiator. All the engine fluid had leaked out, and the smell of gasoline and oil filled the air. The woman said from the open door, "Get in here quick!" and Terry ran into the house before his truck burst into flames and lit up the sacrificial night. The woman said to Terry, "Looks like you'll be spending the night with me." Terry, I am sorry about your truck, but these things happen out here. Terry now was stranded, his truck in flames, no phone, and was in the house of a siren. Unlike those mariners in Greek mythology, he did not have a mast to tie himself into, so his ship would not crash into the rocks and be eaten alive. Terry's trying to make sense of the day. It just didn't seem to be happening to him. The woman said in a calming voice, I know this is all confusing, but all you've been through, yeah, it's kind of like it is, but it'll all make more sense in the morning light. For now, she said, night hides everything we do, except the moon reveals its secrets. Harry had feeling something very bad was going to happen. He may not survive the night. The woman motioned to her bedroom. He stayed by the door. You're eventually going to fall asleep. Either way, we'll be together tonight, she said. Terry walked into the kitchen. Fresh coffee was brewing, and he drank 3 cups. The woman said, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. It's up to you. The easy way will be very pleasurable for you. The hard way will be quite painful. Terry said, please, I have a girlfriend. I am a virgin. We're saving ourselves for each other. Oh, said the woman, I've never had one of those before. So you do not believe in having sex until you're married? And Terry said, yes. The woman said, a man of honor. Okay, I'll make this easy for you. And you'll be able to keep your virginity until you get married. Terry took a brief breath of relief. It must be so hard for you, she said. I can tell your body wants me. Terry gulped, but stood on his convictions. Go ahead and sleep on the couch tonight. I won't touch you without your permission. I need your will to do that. She looked at him and said, you can't rape the willing. I am just like the doors. You can't open unless I let you. Terry took a breath of relief. He survived the temptation. The woman said, do you really want to know what happened to your truck? Terry said, well, what happened? And a third door opened, and one like the living dead out of her crypt came flying out, like a screaming, howling banshee. He saw that she was about Sally's age, ghostly colored, in a ragged nightgown. He stared into her blood-crazed, murderous eyes, and then caught the glimmer off the light of a butcher's knife she held in her hand. He screamed in pain when she stabbed him in his right, then left leg. Do not ever say that word to my sister. And the other woman said, stop. You don't need to kill him. I think he gets the point. Perry was losing blood fast, and then he passed out on the floor. When he woke up, he was in a lot of pain. The other woman was dressed as a nurse, tending to his medical needs. Are you okay? She asked with a pleasant and empathetic bedside manner. Terry asked, will I walk again? His legs were numb. Oh, I have good news, she said. You'll not only recover, but you'll live. Terry could still see that murderous, crazy-eyed, screaming banshee in his mind with the butcher knife. The woman was reading his mind, and she answered his unspoken question. That's my youngest sister. She's rather protective of me. She gets a little carried away sometimes. A little, said Terry. The woman ignored his sarcasm. What set her off? Said Terry. You spoke the word that cannot be spoken here, she said. Terry was going to say, you mean, and she placed her finger on his lips. Say that word, and you will die. My sister is just waiting. I've been thinking about how to ease your conscience of yours without my sister killing you, said the woman. So I have a document. You need to sign, print, sign, and date. Any hesitation, and my sister will come out and hack you to pieces. Harry signed the paper. The woman wrote her name on it as well. What did I sign? Asked Terry. Our marriage certificate, said the woman. We are now in the state of Arizona legally married. She said, and don't worry, I'll be an unforgettable wife. I'll feed you, bed you. You will be happy as long as you live. When you are well, we'll consummate our marriage, as I need your back and both legs healthy. Oh, I forgot, let's kiss. And they did. She winked at him and said, I do, and so will you. Took a week. The nurse patiently and lovingly brought him back to health. He practiced walking around the house and was almost ready to go. The woman said, tomorrow you begin your manly duties and I will do my womanly duties. Terry asked what she wanted him to do. Oh, you will play with my older sister every day while I'm at work. And when I come home and make dinner, we'll go to bed and not sleep until early morning light. Terry hesitated for a moment. I hope I don't need to remind you what happened if you say or act out in any way that gives me any indication of that forbidden word, the woman said. I'll care for you. I'll make all your fantasies come true, or my sister will end your life in a nightmare. There's no need to talk about your death, said the woman. Since you are my wife now, asked Terry, what are your name and what are the names of your sisters? We don't have names, she said. Just call us the three sisters, but you can call me your nurse wife. Terry did heal up, and the first morning he was playing on the dirt floor with the older sister, just like kids. She handed him one of her stuffed rats, and she grabbed the other one, and they had a tea party. Terry made a voice like for the rat, and the older sister squealed with delight. When his wife came home from her nursing job, the oldest told her how much fun she had with Terry. She said, Can we keep him? Of course, said the nurse. He will be your playmate every day while he's alive. The older sister looked at Terry. Please do not die too soon. I like you. Terry washed up for dinner. The woman said making the rat talk was brilliant. Thank you for being so kind to her. She continued, I realize holding dead rats like they are talking cats may be new to you, but I am pleased and I'll reward you tonight. The woman made the best meal he ever ate. You're an amazing cook, he said. The woman said after they finished dishes, I will tend to you. Terry's virginity was still intact. The woman in a kind voice said, I realize you're saving yourself for your wedding night, and you did. Terry was nervous as all get out, yet the woman was gentle, and that night he gave her his virginity. He felt unfaithful to Sally, but if he said that word, he would be dead. The woman who now called himself his wife said, It will be a beautiful life for us. I'll be faithful, and now that you're freshly broken in, we can really have some fun. So for the next 3 weeks, this was Terry's life. One day he was playing tea with the older sister and the dead rats. She said, I have 2 friends I want you to meet, and we can play with them. But I need to bring you to the party in the back room. There, sitting on the folded chairs, were 2 skeletons. She introduced them to Terry as those who keep guard over her. She talked to them, and Terry introduced himself. There they sat, Terry, the older sister, 2 dead stuffed rats who she believed were cats, and her 2 skeleton guardians. This can't get any more stranger, thought Terry. The older sister yawned. I'm going to go to bed and take a nap. He followed her to her back room, and she fell asleep. Terry went into the house where they stayed. He looked at the door to the 3rd house, where that crazy knife-wielding woman came from. He knocked on the door. Who is it? The other sister said. It's me, said Terry. What do you want? Said the voice behind the door. I want to meet with you face to face and get to know you. Your oldest sister's asleep. The door opened, and a young woman about Sally's age came out holding a butcher knife, and it still had Terry's blood on it. She said, You're the first to knock on my door. I kind of keep people away, if you know what I mean. Terry just nodded. He asked, So tell me about yourself. The woman did not let go of her butcher knife, but through a series of questions from Terry, told the family story of the 3 sisters. We all lived with terror ever since I can remember, and his name was Dad. He stabbed to death all 3 of his wives, to include our mom, with a butcher knife. We all watched. I had to clean up after him. I was 5 when he killed my mom. Oh, we also had a brother, but he played house like a grown-up with my older sister, so Dad killed him too. That is why my older sister is so childlike. Her life was hell, but not when she was really little, so now she stays there. Your wife, my other sister, was quite sexually active. She could not keep her pants on. Unfortunately, those boys did not get very far because Dad killed them too. I still remember her in the barn with the boy and Dad pinning him to the wall with a pitchfork. He didn't take him down. After going through all the abuse that we went through, we decided we couldn't live this way. So we got together and waited for Dad to get really drunk and pass out on his bed. My sister, now your wife, dumped gasoline on his body, and we set him on fire. He screamed and we all laughed at him. I remember us making s'mores using his body as a campfire. We just let it all burn down. The house was all ashes, but for some reason I took his butcher knife with me. Oldest sister was put in a mental institution by the state, and my sister, now your wife, took care of me. It was all going so well until I started practicing with my butcher knife on the rats. I found I like killing things. I guess I'm Daddy's girl after all. And now your wife was engaged to be married at the time and was going to settle down and for the first time be actually happy. It was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, but he left her at the altar. I had seen my sister hurt over the years and badly bruised. We weren't allowed to cry, or we would have been beaten. My sister saw more death than I did, but being abandoned broke her. She cried and would not stop. I didn't know how to help her, but my butcher's knife did. You see, said the youngest sister, I'm very protective of her, as you know quite well. So I went to find the guy who broke her heart. I do not know if I would have been so violent with him. I didn't think I had it in me to kill a human, but the guy was a rat for sure. I went to his home, walked around his bedroom, and saw him and my sister's best friend, her bridesmaid, in bed. I was cat-like. I walked around the house. The door was unlocked, and I walked into his bedroom door. I could hear them carrying on, and with each sound my rage was blazing. I quietly opened the bedroom door. They were oblivious, too busy with each other to notice me. Then I climbed up on their bed. I don't weigh much, and got on my knees and drove the blade into the rat's back. And I didn't stop until I counted 47 times. There wasn't much of them left. Do you know, Terry, killing is like baseball. You get better with practice. And I sure now can get into the rhythm and knock the ball out of the park. The young woman that had a murderous smile, she was reminiscing. You know, it would be so easy to kill you, she said. I know, said Terry. I really appreciate you letting me live. For now, said the young woman. For now. Terry needed to change the subject. He said, I was just playing with your older sister, and she introduced me to 2 skeletons, which she sees as human guardians and friends. How did they get there? Are you sure you want to know? Asked the sister, raising up her butcher knife. Terry said, I don't want you to show me, just tell me. Okay, let's go back to the baseball analogy. I liked baseball growing up, and as you know, 3 strikes and the batter's out, right? Yes, said Terry. They only get 3 strikes. Well, those skeletons were men who struck out, said the woman. What happened to them? Asked Terry. Well, they said the word a 3rd time, and so I hacked them, but I didn't kill them. I dragged their bodies each to the desert and watched them being eaten alive, picked to the bone by the vultures. Then I sterilized their bones and brought them to my older sister's playroom to be her guardians. How many strikes do I have against me? Said Terry. You're on strike 2, said the woman. One was when you said no to my sister. I really lost it on your truck. The second strike is when you told my sister that word, and then I stabbed you with my butcher's knife. I thought I heard strike 3, so I went for your chest. But as you know, my sister stopped me. So you are at strike 2. So if I say the forbidden word or you perceive I'm disrespecting your sister, then I'll hack you to death, she said. I will pick out your eyeballs with my knife and hand feed them to the vultures. They like eyeballs, said the youngest sister. Do you know they make a squishing sound in their mouth? Then I will feed them to the rest of you. Either way, you'll play with my older sister. I'm not going to do anything to get hacked up. Good, said the woman. I like you. We all like you. We hope you last longer than the last ones. One more question, said Terry. I get it that your older sister gets a playmate and your other sister gets a husband, and your role is to protect both of them. But other than like killing people, what else do you get out of this? The woman looked at Terry. Well, you probably imagine having the job of hacking people to death makes for a lonely life. Vultures, they don't make very good friends. They're entertaining, and I like watching them eat, but I do get lonely. I'm not like my older sister. I don't live in a make-believe world. She has her friends and is content. I don't have a job like my sister, now your wife, so I watch and experience life vicariously. I get to be a little girl again. Oh, they didn't let me be a little girl. I grew up way too fast. And that's with my older sister. We play, and I get to be a woman and a wife with all of the benefits. So you don't actually experience life firsthand. You live it through others, asked Terry. Yes. And Terry, of course, not you. You're a good guy. But it's many men's fantasies to make 3 women satisfied. You just have to be careful what they ask for. The woman said, You know, my sister's always been kind of a nymph. I like being one too. Thanks for talking to me. And remember, said the woman, I'll be watching everything you do and say. As she raised up her butcher's knife and put it straight down, not into Terry's flesh, but did terrorize the air. She smiled mischievously and then shut the door. Terry that night talked with his now wife about the skeletons he played with and his conversation with the other younger sister. She admired his courage to get to know her sister with the butcher's knife. None of the men ever talked to her. His wife kissed Terry. Oh, you make us all so happy. All of them got together in the older sister's room with cake to congratulate Terry on staying alive for a month. The younger sister said, I will cut the cake, and she controlled herself just enough for each of them to get a piece before she hacked it to pieces with her bloody butcher knife. I'm starting to think you won't leave me at the altar, so to speak, said his wife. That would break your heart, said Terry. It would, said his wife. And if you do, said the younger sister, and paused, here's to vultures eating eyeballs and clink glasses. The sisters all laughed. Well, the youngest hid. That night, his wife took him to places he did not imagine could be pleasurable, and they passed out in each other's arms exhausted. When he woke, she had left, and it was time to go play with the older sister. The older sister was happy to see Terry. She grabbed him by the hand and said, We're not going to play with cats today, or my 2 guardians. I have another room to show you. You've made it longer than anyone else, so it's time for you to meet all my friends. She opened the door which led Terry into a cave-like room lit with candles. The older sister said, my dear friends, this is Terry. He is my friend. And in her mind, all the people were smiling and waving at Terry. What Terry saw were skeletons, hundreds of them, lining the walls and rocks, some intact and many in piles of bones on the floor. He waited until he saw the younger sister with the butcher knife, who was hiding, watching them. Terry knew he was in a graveyard of bones, and he'd be joining them with a slip of the tongue. Terry got right next to the door, and he pushed the older sister off the ledge into the pile of bones. He quickly shut and locked the door, with the two sisters inside. He heard the sound of a butcher's knife repeatedly hitting the door. Terry bolted out of the house and ran down the road in the desert. He then got off the road in case the other sister was headed home. Terry figured he had about 3-hour head start and followed the dry creek bed. When his wife got home, she called out for her older sister. No answer. That's odd. She knocked on her younger sister's door. No answer either. She went into the oldest sister's room and walked into the playroom. She was not here. Then she saw the door to the secret room was closed and opened it. The younger sister flew at her with the butcher knife and she stopped in midair. All three of them sat on the floor with the oldest sister's room by her bed. Terry's wife started to cry. He left me at the altar. The younger sister said, say the word, and it's strike 3. She said, strike 3. Before you leave, said Terry's wife, I want you really to make it hurt for him. Bring him back alive. I want to watch you feed him to the vultures. Oh, and take your time with him. I want to hear his screams from where you find him. The younger sister was used to running in the sand with a butcher knife in her hand and went on a hunt down her. She went to hunt down her prey. Terry was exhausted, dehydrated. He'd been in the blazing sun for at least 3 hours by his account. He made it 2 more hours before he heard a scream, and he felt the butcher knife in his back and fell to the sand. No, I want to see your face. And the younger sister turned him over and started slashing at his chest. She cried, here, birdie, 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 look, I have some fresh meat for you. She brought up the knife to stab him again, and a shot fired. Terry looked and saw a dead vulture who'd been picking at his flesh. Then a familiar voice. It was Sally. Oh, thank God, she exclaimed. I've been looking for you. You wandered off when we were hiking. She had her first aid kit. She bandaged him up as much as she could and loaded him gently into her truck. She drove him to the hospital, but he wasn't responding. He had lost so much blood. Sally prayed, and the church was on a prayer vigil. A week later, Terry came to, but was not like the old Terry. He had to be sedated as he kept trying to knock the vultures away from eating him. And he heard his wife's voice. You left me at the altar. You broke my heart. Now your nightmares will come true. Terry ended up being institutionalized in the same place as the older sister for a few weeks. Sally was miles away and thought she could hear him when she woke up. He did physical therapy at the institution, which was really painful, but it was nothing like doing the trauma work. He kept talking about a house in the desert. And after a while, the police officer said, we drove these parts for many years. There's no house out in the desert. Terry said he believed it all. It was all for heat stroke, but needed to go back there, and did so with the police, his therapist. And he followed the riverbed and saw the old road, and there was no house. He said, there was a house here. It was here. There's no house, said the officer. When you're out in the desert, your mind plays tricks on you. Terry was released from the hospital and went home to his garage, where his truck was fully intact. He asked the police about the stab wounds. Those were real. They didn't come from a knife, said the police officer. They came from a vulture that was determined to have you for lunch. Terry returned to therapy. It took over 6 months to say the word no without screaming. Sally wanted her man back and stood by his side, through all of it demonstrating her character as a godly woman. For Terry, the nightmares continued. He was convinced the young woman with the butcher's knife was watching his every move, just waiting to stab him to death and feed him to the vultures. Terry and Sally began couples therapy. Terry shared with her how he was not a virgin anymore and could not get the images of having sex with his wife out of his head or the torture he went through. Sally knew her guy had been faithful and none of this actually had happened. What do you think happened to him? Sally asked the marital counselor. Well, said the counselor, there's probably a combination of things. One, he really wants to consummate the marriage with you. He's waited a long time. I believe these characters in his mind gave him permission to release his sexual repression. So he created these women, said Sally. He did so in the midst of trauma and almost dying in the desert. said the therapist. He was in a life or death situation. His body did not want to die as a virgin. The reverse unfortunately happened. He's now scared to death of sex. His permission severed his conscience. How do I help? Said Sally. Well, you let him tell you his story. It'll be hard for you. But you really want this guy? He has to tell you everything in detail. Their marital therapy lasted a year. But through confessing to sins that only existed in his mind to cope with all the trauma, and being that vulnerable, and asked for forgiveness of Sally. And he believed God could heal him, and he did. Sally put on her purity ring. He was able to receive the one she gave him a long time ago, it seemed. From there, with purity restored, he was able to place the engagement ring back on Sally's finger. She had been wearing it the whole time, but in his mind he did not see it on her or him. Months later, they started talking about marriage and setting a date. The wedding was so beautiful, her dad Bill gave his daughter away to Terry, and it was the happiest moment in both of their lives. They left that night for Hawaii for their honeymoon. They entered their hotel room. Sally felt shy and she wanted the privacy to put on her modest nightgown, so she went into the bathroom. Terry stripped to his boxer shorts. When she came out of the bathroom, they just sat and talked about nerves, and she asked him not to hurt her because she had heard stories. And clumsily they laughed and played and kissed until he found his way in, and they gave each other their virginity as they consummated the marriage. They awoke the next morning in each other's arms. Their bodies were no longer strangers to each other, as clothing was not needed, and intimacy came easy for both of them. Now that is the ending one. If you want a happy ending, again, please stop here. I really recommend you do. No, seriously, turn off the podcast. Okay, if you've chosen to listen further, the ending will be different. You'll have your Gothic Horror ending instead. The wedding was beautiful. Her dad, Bill, gave away her daughter to Terry. It was the happiest moment of both their lives. They went to the airport only to find, due to an unexpected storm that defied all the weather models and forecasts, they would have to wait until tomorrow. Well, we could wait to consummate our marriage in Hawaii, said Terry. Sally said, not on your life. And they checked into a hotel room next to the airport. They noticed how strangely dark it was that night. The low-lying fog from the desert drifted across the city and wrapped around the buildings like it was strangling them. They entered their hotel room. Sally felt shy and wanted privacy to put on her nightgown, and Terry stripped down to his boxer shorts. Terry asked Sally if everything was okay after not coming out of the bathroom for 10 minutes. Terry waited 15 more minutes. Is everything okay in there, he asked, assumingly she was just shy about lovemaking. He waited 30 minutes. Okay, I'm getting worried, said Terry, and he broke the door down. He stared in horror at what once was his wife. She was laying in the tub covered in blood, and immediately recognized the signature. Okay, little sister, come out. And she did, and she was covered in Sally's blood. She smiled. I beat my record. I stabbed her 50 times. Harry just sat on the bed. Okay, it's strike 3. Go into the bathroom, she ordered, and stand in the shower. Harry had no choice. The woman grabbed Sally's body from the tub and drug it to where her suitcase was. She dumped out the suitcase so all the clothing was on the floor. She then forced Sally's bloody body in the suitcase, causing it to fold up in half and rolling her into a bloody ball, breaking bones. She then took the suitcase, got into the hot shower with it, and the blood washed off her like a river flowing over its banks. She dried the suitcase and toweled off, took an outfit Sally was going to be wearing from the pile of clothes dumped out on the floor and put it on. She then called Terry to take the suitcase and put it in the truck. And yours too. She told him to drive back to their house. During the drive, she said, her sister wants you alive to watch the vultures eat your flesh. Terry continued to drive, turned off the main road and headed down the dry river bank, but there was no house. You have to walk towards it, said the young woman. And as they did, out of the fog that clung to the desert floor, in the hazy moonlight, a building rose out of the sand. She knocked on Terry's wife's door. She invited them in and made dinner. As they both sat at the table, she asked, Terry, do you know you're going to die? Terry said yes, and be fed to vultures. Yes, said his wife, and I am going to watch. Surprisingly, though, the younger sister spoke up. Maybe a different plan, she said. First, if he tries to leave, they're going to kill him. I made sure it looked like he butchered up his wife, and given he was in a state hospital, I expect even the slickest lawyer won't be able to keep him from lethal injection. Terry's wife was furious with her. He left me at the altar. He married another woman. He consummated the relationship. Well, all of that's true, except she died a virgin, said the younger sister. Terry's wife paused. You mean I'm the only one who's been with him? Yes, said her younger sister. Where is she? Asked Terry's wife. I could bring her in, but I don't want to get blood on the floor. Then dump her in the sand. Terry's wife looked at the bloody body and said, Feed her to the vultures, and the younger sister did. Come in, Terry. Her younger sister came in a couple of hours later. The vultures were really hungry. They picked her clean. I'll prep her bones. Some are broken, but I know how to repair them, said the younger sister. But I have an idea, she continued. How about just cutting off some body parts from him? The vultures are still hungry. No, I need all of him, said Terry's wife. That night she made him pay for leaving. For it is said, there is no hell like a woman's fury. Terry didn't know if he would survive the night. When he woke up, it looked like a wild animal got a hold of him. Teeth marks in his back, deep claws. He could hardly move. She, on the other hand, woke up smiling and said, I feel great. And she reached over to touch his back, and he screamed. I guess I did get a little carried away. Every night's going to be like this until I get all this anger out of my body, said his wife, and I have a lot of rage. Now get up, shower off, and take care of your older sister. Terry was playing with dead rats with his older sister, and the younger sister came in. She whispered in his ear, Last night was fun. I can't wait to do that again. I even put down my butcher's knife. I worked all night to give this to you and presented her older sister with a new skeleton named Sally. She's a beautiful woman, said her older sister. I like her wedding ring. When the younger sister kind of left, the older sister said to Terry in a low childlike voice, I know you and Sally are still married. You get to spend every day with her and me. The older sister looked at the skeleton, and there she was. Sally, young, her hair tightened back, with those beautiful eyes and that virgin body. You wanted to be with her forever. Here, hold her hand, said the older sister. The older sister then looked up at Sally's skeleton and said, Would you like some tea? Soon the wait will be over, and the miniseries called Hide and Seek will return to its terrifying conclusion titled Heaven or Hell. Until then, pleasant dreams.